Hello and welcome to this second video in the series where we're looking at the repair and restoration of the Bush VHF 64. In this video, I'll finally get the chassis mounted in a frame. We'll do some safety checks and apply some power under control conditions and start the process of replacing the defective capacitors. Let's see how we get on. So I never really spoke about getting the chassis out of the case. I kind of did that off camera. Essentially, it's just 4 bolts on the base of the chassis which need to be removed, and then that can be taken out of the case. The tricky bit actually is removing the speaker panel. To do that, you actually need to take the 2 speaker cones out, and that reveals 2 other bolts which then can be removed, and that frees up the actual panel to be taken out, and then you get access to the plastic fascia to take that away. So I will spend a little bit more time and attention on the case construction when we actually put the radio back together. So this is the radio mounted, and this is the frame I used for the Bush VHF 61. Just need an extra hole on each side to secure it. I've got the coil for the radio just mounted underneath this piece of wood as well. So all the dodgy wiring or brittle wiring on the speaker system has been changed, and this time around, rather than fix the speakers to the frame, I'm just using screw terminals really, so I can disconnect those when I need to. It keeps the whole work area a lot smaller. Easier to work that way as well. So I'm in a position now to bring this up slowly using a variac and a dim bulb current limiter to just see if it's functioning. So I want to do some safety checks on the mains transformer. So really it's just a case of looking for shorts on that particular transformer. And with the output transformer, that too needs to be checked. The easy way to do that is just put a signal on the primary of that transformer, see if it can get some tone out of there. Okay, so I'm actually going to bring this up under control really, and I've done some safety checks on the mains transformer. Probably resistance is a little bit low, but in my mind, but that may be okay. Certainly not dead short. So really I'm in a position to bring it up slowly. I've got a variac and I've got a dim bulb current limiter on there as well. So I just want to bring it up to half voltage, then bring up to 240 volts. And I'm going to note the current that's drawn. Be interesting just to see the current draw under these conditions and when it's fully restored. So let's just go and bring this on slowly. So variac down to 0, and I've got the radio switched onto medium wave. So just bringing this up, you can see the current is starting to draw. Just making sure we've got a connection there. It's up to 60 volts. No sound. Actually, there's a little bit of hum coming from the speakers, but no radio sound. This on medium wave, so I expect to hear some crackle. I've got the volume turned right up as well. That's up to 130 volts. 168 volts. And that's 240 volts now. And that's 0.2 amps, but there's no sound. So it's definitely drawing. Oh, yeah, I've got some noise coming from there. Just make a note of these readings. Notice the current door's just coming up, and we're just getting a little bit on the dim bulb current limiter. That's just on very slowly. So 0.235 amps. So definitely some work to do. We're up to 0.24 amps, 240 milliamps now. I think that's going to be okay. So it's just very little bit on the dim bulb, so that's a fairly good sign. So my strategy for repairing the radio so far is to start with the filter capacitor or the filter capacitor can on the power supply, because something is increasing the current draw, which is causing the dim bulb current limiter to come on. So that's likely to be a leaking capacitor. So I'll do that first, and then this radio's got a gram input, so it'd be quite easy to inject an audio signal into there. So I think I'll work back from the audio stage, get that working, and then whatever faults follow on, I'll address those. I'll probably work up from the radio frequency stages then, but I haven't made that decision. So first of all, let's get those filter capacitors changed, and let's look at the audio power amplifier. So we changed the main filter capacitor, which is the 3 capacitors in the can, and it was definitely a shot. When I put the ESR meter on them, they're all reading about 35 picofarads. Well, I just put a standard capacitance test on there, then we're reading about 125 microfarads. So either way, not very good. I even just calibrated my both meters against a new capacitor, and it was bang on, really. So something seriously amiss with that. So I'm in the position really just to give this another test. So I just put this into medium wave, and we'll power a few bits on. I'll just bring these up slowly. Start to draw current already. That's on about 60. It's about 120 volts. Right. Okay, so 240 now. So a couple of interesting things. The dim bulb isn't coming on anymore, and the current draw, although it's still climbing, it's about 0.2 amps at the moment. That's actually dropped a little bit there on the voltage. It's just coming on now, the dim bulb. Yeah, it's still drawing about the same power. You may not be able to hear it. There's a little bit more noise coming out of the audio. Still no radio sound. Just seems to be a little bit more life there, so it's probably a marginal change. I'll stick with the plan now and just focus on the audio stage. So I have on good authority from experienced restorers and professionals that these old plastic capacitors do reform very well. That's not something I've got experience of doing, and I'm not confident enough to do it with this radio at this point in time, so I will be replacing them. However, the cam will stay in place, and I think it's a good exercise for me really to take this capacitor and others and try and reform it and see what results I get. That might make a good video, so that's what I'll do, but for now I'll just replace the capacitors. So what I've done just to test the audio stage, I've got some 3mm banana plugs plugged into the gram input or the pickup input, and that's just connected to a signal generator. So we'll turn the system on and see if we get some sound. So just going to give the radio a test now. The audio stage, so I've got the signal generator plugged in the into the gram input, so that's the input for the record player. So I'll just turn the system on, there I come, and just bring this up slowly up to 80 volts now, 120, 240. That's gone on there. Now I'll need to bring the gram input into play. Let the system warm up. I can start to hear some tones coming in now. Well, that's really encouraging. It's definitely working. Sometimes when systems are working, you think, well, that's it, but there's a possibility that it's still weak, and the temptation is still to change the Hunt's capacitors in there, the paper capacitors only, and there's a very dodgy looking electrolytic as well, which doesn't look healthy, so I'll change that. But I think for obviously the valves are working. For the audio stage, it's looking very good. So I actually went off and did a little bit more testing, audio testing on the radio. What I found is I thought the frequency was tailing off around 6 kilohertz, which for my ears is good, but it's not really what it should be. I thought the frequency response should be a bit higher. Wasn't really testing it scientifically though, so maybe I should have looked a little bit harder. Nevertheless, I think that's a good reason really for investigating the capacitors to make sure they're all operating optimally. The tone controls were working. They're very noisy, so the pots there need to be cleaned up. But all in all, very pleased. But I think I can improve the sound. So I started the process of recapping the radio, and I started on the top around the audio output speaker. There's a few components there. So these green capacitors were waxes, and the sort of reddish coloured one there was a Hunt's, and the first waxy, which is this one here, was way out. It should have been 10 nanofarads. It was measuring about 11 picofarads, very leaky. And the other waxy was okay in terms of capacitance, but again, that was very leaky as well. The Hunt's, as expected, was way out of tolerance, probably about 22 picofarads. So when I actually put it back onto the audio system now, I'm actually getting in excess of 12 kilohertz, and I can even hear that with my hearing. So I'm pretty sure that's better, and it's a lot louder. Really is loud now. So I've hardly got that volume on. Before I had the volume pretty much right up. So even just those few capacitors, I'm certain in my mind that that has improved the situation significantly. So it's a good start. I'm going to just carry on with the capacitors, which are notoriously bad. That's the electrolytics. There's just a couple of those, I think, and the Hunt's paper capacitors and the waxes as well. So I'll just keep working through the system. Do a couple and test it. Do a couple, test it. So a little bit of a challenge. I changed 3 capacitors, and normally I'd change 1 or 2 and test it. I'd change 3 this time. They're going to be okay because they'll just fill up capacitors, and the radio's gotten really quiet. So C68, C69, and C70 are what I changed. 69 and 70 are both electrolytic capacitors, and both of those were really faulty. So I wasn't really expecting a problem. When I came to C68, which is actually a capacitor which sits across the input of the audio transformer, so it must be providing some sort of filtering function. That was a waxy, and it was actually really burnt and black, so I changed that, but it was actually within specification. It was working, so I could actually put that back in. But the one I put in is same specification, really. So I was surprised the radio went quiet. So it's a bit of a challenge. My strategy really will be to just carry on for the moment and just monitor the voltages with respect to the reference, and just see if we can get the radio back. If not, I'll go back to that area and just try and work out what the issue might be. But this moment, it's annoying, but we're quite early in the process, and we'll see how we get on. So I'll leave part 2 here. Hopefully we'll make some progress in part 3. Don't forget, if you like these videos, then please do subscribe and share the videos. It really does help, and I'll catch you in the next episode.